Life in a medieval castle was no fairy tale of gallant knights or endless revelry. Far from the polished scenes of Hollywood, these stone behemoths housed a world of jarring contrasts, where fleeting moment of opulence for the privileged few stood in stark relief against the grinding hardship endured by the many. Towering walls of gray stone, scarred by time and siege, were more than mere shelters. They were the pulsing heart of feudal power, where every vaulted hall, winding staircase, and fortified tower played a role in an intricate, unyielding hierarchy that governed all within. As dawn broke, the castle stirred to life with cacophony of sounds. Church bells tolled, their deep chimes reverberating through foggy courtyards, while clatter of servants' footsteps echoed off cold stone floors. The lower classes, scullery maids, stable hands, and kitchen boys, rose before the sun, their breath visible in the chilly air as they hauled wood, kindled fires, and scrubbed grimy flagstones. Their labor was the castle's lifeblood, ensuring warmth and sustenance for the lords and ladies still cocooned in sleep. Nobles slumbered in cavernous bedchambers, their heavy oak beds swathed in thick tapestries and furs, a fragile barrier against the damp chill that seeped through every crack and crevice. These rooms, though grand in title, were often drafty, with flickering rushlights casting long shadows on stone walls adorned with faded heraldry. Breakfast was a humble affair, far removed from the feasts of legend. Even the nobility made do with coarse, day-old bread, softened in weak ale or watery porridge. On good days, a sliver of sharp cheese or a strip of salted meat might grace their table, but such luxuries were scarce. The grand banquets immortalized in tales, tables laden with golden platters and overflowing goblets, were rare spectacles, staged only for momentous occasions like royal visits, betrothals, or sacred feast days. For most, daily life was a study in austerity, where survival trumped splendor. The castle itself was a paradox, a fortress built to defy invaders, yet a prison of its own making. Its thick walls, pocked with arrow slits and crowned with battlements, repelled swords and siege engines, but also trapped the damp, acrid smoke of hearth fires and the sour stench of rotting food scraps. In winter, the cold was merciless, clawing through cloaks and chilling bones. Rats and mice skittered through straw-strewn floors, their squeaks a constant undercurrent to the castle's dim latrines, little more than crude holes in outer walls, fouled the air with their reek, mingling with the greasy aroma of overcooked stews from bustling kitchens. Comfort, as we know it, was unthinkable, a distant fantasy in a world where survival demanded resilience. Beyond defense, castles were the nerve centers of feudal life. In great halls, where torchlight danced on vaulted ceilings, lords held court, their voices booming as they settled disputes, levied taxes, and issued decrees. Peasants, weathered and stooped, shuffled in to plead for mercy, a reduced tithe, a reprieve from punishment, while armored soldiers stood ready, awaiting orders to patrol muddy roads or man the ramparts. These halls were theaters of power, where loyalty was demanded and justice was swift, often brutal. The Lord's word was law, his authority as unyielding as the stone surrounding him. When rare banquets did unfold, they transformed the castle into a stage of decadence. Long oaken tables sagged under the weight of roasted boar, venison, and glistening pheasant, flanked by crusty loaves, bowls of stewed fruits, and casks of spiced wine. Minstrels plucked haunting melodies on lutes, their songs weaving tales of valor, while jesters in motley twirled and jested, their bells jingling. Nobles, draped in silks and furs, laughed heartily, their goblets clinking in toast to power and prosperity. Yet, this excess was a carefully curated display. Feasts were not mere meals, but political arenas where alliances were brokered, marriages arranged, and wars seated in hushed tones over flickering candlelight. Servants, hovering at the edges, watched hungrily as scraps fell to the rush-covered floor, where dogs and desperate hands vied for leavings, a stark reminder of the chasm between lord and laborer. Beneath the revelry, the castle's harsh realities persisted. The air, thick with the mingled scents of charred meat and overflowing privies, clung to every surface. Even the grandest chambers were damp, their tapestries mildewed, their hearts belching smoke that stung the eyes. Life here was a delicate dance of ritual and endurance, where power was wielded with a heavy hand, and survival was a daily triumph. Yet, beyond the fleeting splendor of feasts, a darker truth festered in the castle's underbelly, a world where justice blurred into cruelty, and the shadows and terrors that shaped the lives of all within. Beneath the castle's weathered stone floors, hidden in the suffocating gloom of masmoras, a world of dread unfolded. These dank, lightless dungeons, carved deep into the earth, were chambers of despair where prisoners faced horrors that chilled the soul. Torture was not merely punishment, but a grim instrument of control, wielded with ruthless precision. Iron racks stretched limbs to breaking. Branding iron seared flesh with a hiss, and cramped cages forced bodies into agonizing contortions. The air was thick with the tang of sweat and fear, and the screams of condemned ricocheted off slimy walls, a haunting echo that seeped into the castle's upper halls. To be accused, whether of treason, heresy, or petty theft, was to risk these cells, where truth mattered little, and the Lord's will was absolute. Public executions, staged in courtyards under grim skies, drew crowd from castle and village alike. These spectacles of suffering, beheadings, hangings, or worse, were not just justice for theater, etching fear into every onlooker's heart and reinforcing the Lord's unyielding power. Superstition wove itself into the very fabric of castle life, as pervasive as the damp that clung to its walls. In an age where science was a faint whisper, every creaking beam or flickering shadow hinted at malevolent forces. Servants and nobles alike hung amulets, knotted herbs, carved bones, or blessed charms, over doorways to ward off spirits. Prayers blended seamlessly with ancient pagan rites, whispered in candlelit chapels or muttered over hearths. Illness was no mere affliction but a divine curse or the work of witches' malice. A festering wound might spark whispers of sorcery, a plague blamed on demonic wrath. Ghost stories thrived in the castle's dim corridors, where servants swore they heard spectral footsteps, and even nobles dreaded die without a priest's absolution, fearing their souls would wander the earth. The castle's architecture itself was a bulwark against the unseen. Stone lintels bore carved crosses, and sacred symbols adorned walls, not for beauty, but for protection. Chaplains led solemn masses, their incense-heavy processions winding through halls to soothe anxious spirits. Yet the specter of the unknown lingered, a constant companion, in a world ruled by faith and fear. Despite these shadows, castles pulsed with vibrant life, where entertainment offered a fleeting reprieve from the era's brutality. By night, great halls glowed with torchlight as minstrels strummed lutes, their ballads of heroic knights and doomed lovers captivating rapt audiences. Jugglers tossed flaming torches, and acrobats defied gravity with daring flips, their feats drawing gasps from nobles draped in velvet. Religious festivals transformed the castle into a riot of color and sound, uniting lords and laborers in fervent celebration. Processions snaked through courtyards, banners fluttering, as dancers swirled to the rhythm of drums and pipes. Tournaments were the pinnacle of spectacle, where armored knights thundered across fields, lances splintering against shields with bone-jarring force. The crowd roared, their cheers mingling with the clatter of hooves and the clang of steel as knights vied for honor and glory. Yet these contests were no mere games. Shattered bones and fatal falls were all too common, the thrill of victory tempered by the ever-present risk of death. For the castle's humbler souls, entertainment was simpler but no less vital. In smoky kitchens or wind-swept courtyards, servants gathered around crackling fires, their voices weaving folk songs or chilling tales of haunted woods and vengeful spirits. Laughter rang out as they shared crude jests or played games with worn dice, stealing moments of joy after grueling days. These gatherings were acts of defiance, small rebellions against a life of toil. While nobles basked in lavish spectacles, the lower classes found solace in community, their stories and songs passed down through generations, binding them to a shared past. In these moments, the castle's rigid hierarchy softened, if only briefly, as human connection bridged the gap between classes. Thus, the medieval castle was a paradox, a fortress of iron control and raw fear, yet a stage for exuberant celebration and enduring resilience. Its walls sheltered both cruelty and camaraderie, where the clash of swords and tournaments echoed alongside the whispers of superstition, and excesses of feast stood in stark contrast to the hunger of the lowly. Within this complex tapestry, life unfolded in all its messy, vibrant humanity, a testament to the indomitable spirit that found light even in the darkest of times.